We got a question already. Look at this. Bridget. Hello. What is the requirement of equipment that is needed to do the software engineering program? So, simplest answer possible, a MacBook. That's the ideal. So we get this question quite often, and the ideal is a MacBook. And the reason for that is that, well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, it tends to be more reliable. Macs tend to be more reliable in what we're doing. But probably more importantly is that the software that you use to write code on that they use in the classroom was specifically designed for a Mac iOS. That said, we've had numerous students go through using Windows-based PCs. They typically convert them over to Linux when it starts. In terms of systems requirements, it's not a lot. It doesn't have to be fancy. We have people coming through with several years old MacBooks do just fine. What I recommend is that going through the application process, you can use just about anything. So when you're working on an application, completing your application, you definitely don't need anything fancy. When you get through the application process and you get to the guided application, you start interacting with instructors, I would wait until that point to ask more specifics from the instructors, the people who are actually leading the class, and get some more detailed guidance from them, since they'll have a better insight. If you're going through VR&E, and we'll get into VR&E, I'm sure the VA's program VR&E, they will ask you, what are the specific requirements of this program? In that case, because VR&E will buy you a laptop, we say, the higher the better. Obviously, you want something better. So go for a MacBook Pro would be ideal. But do you absolutely need a MacBook Pro? No, you don't. So anyway, get through the application process and start interacting with the instructors to get more clear guidance. But bottom line, shortest answer possible, a MacBook is ideal.
Absolutely. I also kind of personally recommend a decent headset since you'll be listening to lectures for a large portion of the day. It'll just be a lot more comfortable of an experience to have a nice headset that you like wearing as well.
Yes, agreed. Because you'll if you like wearing earphones to be on like Zoom calls, you'll be in them a lot. Um, hey guys, I'm really interested in the DevOps and cloud programs. Wanted to ask what those entail and if past graduates can apply to those programs. I was in Bravo Platoon. Welcome, Michael from Bravo Platoon. Fantastic to have you. One of the OG Code Platoon people. Good. Absolutely, you can apply. In fact, I would say DevOps. That's more who DevOps is geared towards. That's one of the reasons why we have DevOps is only offered in evening and weekend format, primarily because the most of the interest in DevOps is from people who are already working as software engineers. So it sounds like you probably already know a lot about that, maybe even more than me, probably more than me, as a matter of fact. But yes, we would love to have you come back as a DevOps graduate. So talk with shoot me an email. I'll send you over to Tish and Guillermo, and yeah, we'll get you set up. If you graduated in Bravo, I'm sure everybody would love to hear from you. That follow-up, if you guys write up max specs, VR&E will provide that, but it has to be in writing. Yes, in fact, that was something we just did recently as an SOP. We have it written somewhere, but it was something we just did like a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not sure what the specifics are, but you're exactly right. And that's why I added that caveat about VR&E. If you're going through VR&E, yes, they will pay for a laptop, but it does have to be in writing what the requirements are. So that's why we set the bar a little bit higher for that purpose. But just so you know, if someone is going through and they're paying for it themselves, it doesn't have to be super fancy. Um, what can you tell me about the cloud program? Didn't see much on the website. Michael, the best place to go for that is Kayla, and I don't know if you could find a link. I just had it earlier. The DevOps graduation. So if you look at the DevOps graduation on YouTube, they will show what their final projects were. And you're probably going to understand more about what's going on there than I would. I would highly recommend watching the DevOps graduation on YouTube. What is our most recent one? Is it Alpha Evening Weekend, or is it Did we graduate Bravo yet?
Bravo graduates at the end of this month, actually. So I don't know what your
Oh,
timeline is, but if you want to tune into that live on October 26th, that will be happening. I haven't posted it on the YouTube channel yet, but I was going to do it right after this session. So you can stay tuned for that one.
yes. But until then, um, the code platoon, in fact, I think I can find it here really, really quickly to put it in. Let's see. Evening weekend alpha. There we go. I found it. Um, I'm going to put this in here. There is the alpha evening and weekend graduation. So that was our second. The very first DevOps program we ran was an immersive, immersive all day, every day cohort. We switched to evening and weekend only because of the reasons I said a minute ago. That's where the demand was. The demand was for people who are already working as developers. So we went to only evening and weekend. So this was technically our second graduation. But I think that's probably the best way to answer that question in more depth than what's on the website. Like if you looked at our DevOps page already and you got a breakdown, I would say that's probably the best place to start. And the second best place to start is to well, I'll put you in touch with who's the lead instructor for DevOps now? Is it Chandra?
Julius.
Julius is now okay. So Michael, if you can email me, I will put you in touch with Julius, who's also a alumni, or yeah, he's an alumni. I'll put you in touch with Julius, and that way you can have a conversation about the details of what they're covering. Because I feel like with you, can you through your email? Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Super easy, Greg at Code Platoon. Since you were before me, I came here about 4.5 years ago. Bravo was a little bit before me. So email me and I will connect you with Julius, because I feel like you, having graduated already and you're probably working in this industry, your knowledge base is probably well beyond mine as a recruiter. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't want to feed you a bunch of things that are like, you're like, yeah, that's too easy. It's too simple for me. So yeah, email me. I'll put you in touch with Julius. He's great. I just saw him in Chicago and he'd be more than happy to talk to you about what they do in there in more detail. Any other questions and the cloud stuff? I don't
So
know.
DevOps and Cloud Engineering is one program because they're very intertwined as disciplines. So you're not going to be the first one, nor will you be the last one who gets a little confused by the name. Totally understandable, but that is the same program. You do both DevOps engineering and cloud engineering in that program, and it prepares you for roles in kind of both of those disciplines since they overlap.
Yes, yes, yes. Sorry, maybe I had misunderstood what the question was. Yeah, it's all rolled into one. That's the whole intent. But again, you should be able to glean a lot of that from the graduation videos, which I think are some of the best resources we have, honestly, like watching the students' final projects. And for others on the call, our full stack graduations are another fantastic resource for exactly that with the full stack programs. So we just had a graduation. X-ray is the most recent, correct?
Yes.
X-ray platoon. So if you go onto YouTube and you Google Code Platoon X-ray platoon graduation, you're going to see the full stack graduates debuting their final projects and explaining them. And even if you're brand new to this discipline, I think it works great as a resource because it helps you understand what you're working towards. It kind of shows you that end goal of what you can accomplish in 15 weeks. It's pretty impressive. And I'm sure Michael would, second that in terms of his time at Code Platoon back in Bravo Platoon. Is it geared towards specific certs? I know the AWS and DevOps Cloud cert is a standard. I don't know if they're doing another cert. I don't know if they're doing another cert in DevOps or not. I know that there wasn't, like, we were doing Agile, but now we're not because we lost our instructor who does Agile. And I don't know if we've replaced that with anything or not. So definitely ask Julius that when you start interacting with them.
I can tell you definitively for this cohort, they still change the cohorts a little bit. You know, it's still iterating since it's a newer program, but I can tell you the one that's graduating soon, they all did the AWS Solutions Architect Associate certification as part of the program, in addition to the ones Greg mentioned.
Okay, so there's two AWS certs? Or am I
Yeah.
clear? So the cloud, okay, so cool. So two AWS certs. I was not aware of that second one. So thanks. I'm learning things on Coffee and Code Platoon today. Everyone,
I
congratulations.
lurk in the DevOps instructors channel on Slack. That's how I know that.
Clearly, I need to be there more often.
Uh,
Um, the question, how would you describe the pace of the overall boot camp programs? Michael's going to be a subject matter expert on this. Obviously, things have evolved a little bit since Bravo Platoon. We just graduated X-Ray, where Yankee is in, getting ready. Like things have evolved, no question, but it's intense. And we're upfront about that very thing. Expect 10 to 12 hour days, 5 days a week at the very least. 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning until you're done, which in this world is really never, because there's never an end to things that you're going to learn. Um, I'm making a career transition towards coding and trying to learn the basics and everything on my own and through other online courses as well. Well, one of the cool things about Code Platoon is that we have a tremendous amount of resources for free. So if you want to start learning JavaScript and Python, we've got a lot of it. We've got a lot of it that we're going to give to you. Once you start that application process, we're going to start generating emails to you where we've got a whole video series on intro to Python. We've got a whole video series on intro to JavaScript. We've got a lot that you can do before the cohort starts. And one of the reasons we do that is because of exactly what Michael said here a minute ago. It's you got to be all in, but we don't expect you to start day one of the cohort at zero. We want to provide you with as much foundation as possible before the cohort actually starts so that we can go all in on day one. That way, we're not starting day one with a bunch of people going, I don't know how, everybody knows at least something about the fundamentals by the time the program starts, which enables us to hit the ground running on day one and go all in. So yeah, there's a lot we can offer for free via our YouTube channel, via our Intro to Coding program, which we're also revamping, should be coming soon, and then also via our guided application process, which is kind of a new thing that we're doing here at Code Platoon, where it's a live instructor-led class that meets a few times a week in the evenings leading up to the actual cohort so that you can get that fundamental understanding before the cohort ever starts. So there's a lot you can do on your own well before day one. And we want you to, believe me, we want you to get the most out of what you're doing here.
Absolutely. I don't want to make any assumptions, Alexa, about like where you are in your journey or whether you've started an application or submitted an application or anything like that, but or which cohort you're trying to apply to. But our new guided application could be a really good option for you if it lines up with the cohort you're interested in, and if you are someone who would prefer to kind of start out learning the basics in an instructor-led class, like Greg said, instead of doing it on your own. That would be something worth looking into for sure, I think.
Absolutely. I'm going to drop just real quick here. That is our intro to Python playlist on YouTube for anyone who's interested. And also, real quick, I'm going to provide our intro to JavaScript playlist, both very useful at the beginning stages of your journey. And then I can also put in our intro to coding as soon as I snag that link. I should probably have these just pulled up when
While we're busy sharing YouTube links, I do want to mention, Michael, that This might not have been the case when you were at Code Platoon since that was pretty early on, but we do record and post all of our lectures on our YouTube channel and they're totally accessible to anyone interested. So if you ever want to just like look at the what the DevOps students have been doing, you're always welcome to go on our YouTube channel and look at some of those class lectures, see what they're learning in addition to the graduations.
Good point. Good point, Kayla. And appreciate that because, yeah, we have, oh, I don't know what we have at this point, but it's got to be tens of thousands of hours of classes on our YouTube channel uh, covering just about anything. So if you think of a topic and you say, hey, did Code Platoon cover this? Type in Code Platoon and that topic, and I bet it's probably there. Let's see. Any other questions? Any other questions from anyone else? Here we go. If a prospective student who is self-funding their program qualifies for multiple scholarships, can they apply for multiple ones at the same time? Also, should they apply for the program first and then for the scholarships, or do these applications need to be submitted simultaneously? Thank you for asking, because it's a question we often get, so it's always good to cover that. Here's the bottom line at Code Platoon with scholarships. Number one, we make it really easy. We make it super simple. This is not like a college or a university when it comes to scholarships in any way at all. The application process will take you under 30 minutes. Number two, we don't let tuition become a barrier to attendance. So keep those things as foundational ethos driving pieces of information for you at Code Platoon when I say everything else. With regard to multiple scholarships, here's what's going to happen. When you, number one, you don't have to have the scholarship out of the way first. Start the application process to Code Platoon first. That's usually the best way to go about things. The only thing you can do with regard to scholarships prior to your application is the eligibility. You can fill out the eligibility form, which Kayla just shared in the chat. You can follow, you can fill that out, and that will tell you whether or not you're eligible for a scholarship. That's fine. You can do that now. But in terms of being awarded an actual scholarship, what's going to happen is that after you're accepted to Code Platoon, once you get to that point, once you have that welcome call with me and Tish and Guillermo and Rod, the director of Code Platoon, you're going to be connected with Tish. And if you want scholarships, she's going to give you a form to fill out. Based on that form, they're going to give you the best scholarship they can. It's that simple. So you don't need, based on that form, you may very well qualify for multiple areas of scholarships. Fill them all out. Like check all the boxes. Anything that you qualify for, fill those out and submit that form. Based on that, they will give you the best scholarship that you qualify for. Our scholarships cover between 80 and 100% of the tuition. So it's not that we would award you multiple scholarships. It's that we're just going to give the best one that we can, whatever you qualify for, whatever that means. So apply to the program when we get to that point, and we will make it very clear when you're at that point. You'll fill out the scholarship application form. We award the best scholarship based on that. We keep it very simple. Again, you're not writing 10,000 word essays. You're not, hoping for $500. That's not how things happen at Code Platoon. We all just came back from Chicago. Well, actually, Kayla's in Chicago. I just got back from Chicago. We all did a fundraising event for Code Platoon for this very purpose, so that we can have money for scholarships. And it was fantastic. It was great to raise money and help future students be able to afford to attend. So again, we keep it simple and we don't let tuition become a barrier.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a lot of good information. Just to summarize it really quickly, do your application first, but submit the scholarship eligibility form if you haven't yet. That'll be like one thing out of the way until after you're accepted to Code Platoon.
Yes, that was the bottom line summary, better than my long-winded explanation.
I think they're both useful, but I think it's nice to establish those two.
I've
Um,
come to appreciate that. I think a lot of people, and it's very understandable why, because of the world we live in education, people are very concerned about things like tuition and, bottom line, what is this going to cost me? And so I like to just drill down on the fact that Code Platoon is, like, when I first started working for Code Platoon, I was blown away about how generous it was, because I thought it was kind of almost thought it was like a smoke and mirrors thing. I was like, there's no way they're actually doing this. No, they really are. They really are this generous. So, yeah, it's cool to see. And we like doing it.
Absolutely. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But while we're on the topic of paying for Code Platoon, since that is a question, or lots of questions that we get a lot, Greg, what other options aside from scholarships, what VA benefits are available for Code Platoon?
Yes, good question. For those, I'm going to hit off the one that we don't have just because it's often a question on a lot of people's minds. There was something, so VA benefits, first of all, VA benefits, you've got a couple of options. There used to be something called Vet Tech. Vet Tech does not exist anymore. Vet Tech died. For those, for your edification, Vet Tech was always designed to end. So this wasn't a surprise to anyone. We always knew it was going to end. What we hoped for was that Congress would enact a new piece of legislation that would make it permanent and make it like a permanent part of the GI Bill. We're still waiting on Congress to do exactly that. There is currently a bill in Congress that would make vet tech permanent. There's no way that's going to happen at this point until the new year, until 2025 at the earliest. So vet tech is off the table. What does that leave? It leaves two options. It leaves the GI Bill and it leaves VR&D, which we mentioned briefly earlier. GI Bill, first option, is only available if you attend in person. GI Bill can be used in person, but only in person, and that's the VA's rules. That is, for the record, why vet tech was ever invented in the first place, and why I like to mention vet tech is because a lot of people don't understand that the limitations of the GI Bill. That's why they tried to address that. GI Bill won't pay for a school like ours if you attend remotely. So if you attend in person, and the only cohort that is eligible for in-person attendance is our full stack immersive cohort, if that is in the cards for you, then yes, GI Bill is an option. Two, VR&D. Veterans Readiness and Employment used to be called Voc Rehab. It's the same program. If you're familiar with Voc Rehab at all, exactly the same thing. It is designed, technically speaking, to be an aid for veterans who have disabilities to get back into the workforce with new training. Sometimes that can apply to school. Sometimes it can apply to trade schools, various things. There's a couple of there's some great upsides and kind of a big downside to VR&E. The upsides is that it's a fantastic program to attend Code Platoon because you can attend remotely and they will pay you a living stipend and they will buy you a laptop. They'll pay the whole tuition, remote, in person, whatever, and they'll pay it up front. It's great. It's fantastic. Here's the downside. It requires you meeting a counselor individually with the VA and making your case for why you would like to go to a place like Code Platoon. That doesn't sound all that bad, and it's really not, but the downside of that is that it takes time, and it takes a significant amount of time. If you go onto the VA's website right now and submit an application for VR&E, it will be at least a month before you're ever in front of a counselor. So plan on that. As long as you have the time, it's not a big deal, but just be aware of that going in, that if you're getting ready to attend Code Platoon in a month, VR&E it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really tricky. Now, I just learned something this week that is helpful in that regard. VR&E can, I'm not going to say will, because I won't put any words into the verbiage of what the VR&E does. VR&E can pay retroactively. So we just learned this with a student who just graduated, and VR&E rep told us that VR&E funds can be used to retroactively pay for Code Platoon graduate. This is fantastic news, and it kind of addresses some of that time issue that I was mentioning. But again, this is a can. It's not a will. VR&E is not an entitlement. It's not like the GI Bill. Just because you served, you don't get VR&E. That's not how it works. So get with me, email me if you want specifics on VR&E, and I think we have a blog post recently published on that. But I can absolutely, I can go into more detail on that. I just saw, I'll cut that short because I see questions come in. Trust the organization, the opportunities are very real. Michael, it's good to hear. Because like I said, when I started working here 4.5 years ago, I was like, really? Come on. I'd worked for several veteran organizations since I got out in 2009. I've worked with a couple, and I've seen some of the kind of shady aspects of the veteran industry, and some people don't put their money where their mouth is. I can say honestly, Code Platoon does, and that's why I've stayed here for 4.5 years. So it's great to hear that from a former student as well. Question, how transferable is the full stack program at Code Platoon? Can I get a different tech job like project management after the program? You absolutely can. I think the most common job title, and I think that Career Services told me this a little while ago, so I should double check with them to see if anything's changed. The most common job title of our graduates is that of junior software engineer or junior software developer. And it depends on who you talk to, whether or not those terms are interchangeable. Some people say they are, some people say they're not. So I'm not going to go down that road of arguing the verbiage, but junior software engineer is the most common, but that does not mean by any means it's the only job title. Data analytics is another popular field. Sorry, my dog's barking. Hopefully y'all didn't hear that too loudly. Data analytics, project management, I think a lot from what I've seen in my own career, project management has a lot to do with your own experience outside of Code Platoon or, outside of this particular skill set. But if you had something like you were an officer in the military and then you added Code Platoon to your resume, is project manager a possibility? Absolutely, yes. No question about it. I think that somewhat depends on your own individual skill set, but can it help? As a project manager in a tech field, 100%, yes, it can. And we've got numerous graduates who will speak to exactly that. But I think, Kayla, can you think of any other job titles that are common? Data analytics is the most popular one. I know we have a couple people who went into cybersecurity after Code Platoon, like they were software engineers and they got more into the cybersecurity realm. But I don't know. Can you think of any other job titles?
Yeah, I know a couple of people who went into like QA and like quality assurance as well. Before our DevOps program existed, we did have some people go straight from the full stack program into DevOps, but now we have a bit more of a one-to-one there since the DevOps program does exist now.
Well, on that note, it's important for everybody listening in. I think we should note that Code Platoon was the first standalone DevOps curriculum out there. So until Code Platoon started a DevOps curriculum, everyone who worked in DevOps did it by on-the-job training. They were software engineers or something similar first, and then just kind of became DevOps. So we're really like that's the beginning of that as a new skill. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I can definitely, for project management specifically, I definitely know of several grads we've had who either had previous like non-technical project management experience that they applied along with Code Platoon to technical project management, or they started in software engineering and then transitioned to project management after a couple of years once they built up those skills. So you're certainly not locked into one job title for life, for sure.
Definitely not. No, we've got a lot of graduates who've gone different directions. Question just came in. If I'm the wife of a veteran and my husband has an 18-year-old daughter, can we both apply for the benefits or are there limitations? As of 1 month ago, the answer to this is yes, the 18-year-old daughter can apply to Code Platoon. So now you specifically said in the question here has said benefits. So if you're talking like VA benefits, that's out of my realm. I think the answer is no, simply because if someone transfers their VA benefits, they can only transfer it to one person, as I understand it. I could be wrong on that. However, can both of you attend Code Platoon and can both of you be awarded scholarships? Yes, absolutely yes, 100%. And that's as of a month ago. A few years ago, we opened up for spouses. That was right about the time that I came on board, 2020, I think, maybe slightly before that. But as of a month ago, we have opened up to dependents or children of military veterans, active duty military as well. So can both of you apply and be awarded scholarships? Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
Please do. Please do. Are there limitations? The limitations are only what each individual qualifies for in the realm of scholarships. So if you go to our scholarships page, you can see what some of the scholarships are. So the only limitations would be, what they qualify for as a scholarship. Again, all of our scholarships cover between 80 and 100% of the tuition. And I should add to that too, this is worth noting. Let's say someone got an 80% scholarship. Right now, our tuition is $20,000. That remainder, okay, the remainder is not something that would be due necessarily upfront. Now, if you wanted to pay the remainder upfront, you're more than welcome to. But we've seen a lot of instances where Code Platoon has said, you can't pay it upfront. That's okay. You can pay it after graduation, maybe once you find a role, start paying on it slowly. So this isn't something like that remaining 20% is due right now, or you don't get to attend or something like that. Again, we do everything we can to make sure tuition is not a barrier. So please don't think that, worst case scenario, 80% scholarship, we're still working with you. We're still doing what we can to make it feasible.
Absolutely. I put the scholarships page in the chat, so you can take a look at what all the offerings are. I will, as a note of personal responsibility, say they do not yet say military child on them because we just announced the update and I haven't updated that web page yet. That is entirely on me, but they do qualify. Military children do qualify, specifically Veteran and Military Spouse Scholarship, Black and Hispanic Scholarship, Women in Technology Scholarship, and Transgender Scholarship. All of those will also apply to military children as well. And anyone watching this in the future, the website will show that, but it doesn't right this second. Just wanted to make that caveat.
Yes, indeed. I'm glad that you said that because I immediately, as I said, our scholarships page, I thought, oh, is it on there yet? Because this is a very new development. I'm not joking when I say a month ago we decided this. It's very recent. I don't remember the exact date that this was handed down, but children coming to Code Platoon is a very new thing for all of us. We have not, and for the record, this is why I'm encouraging it, because I want somebody to be the first. Right? We've never had a child of a veteran. I keep saying child, like it's not children. We're talking fully grown adults here, but child of. We have not had one come through Code Platoon. So somebody's got to be the first, and we're eagerly anticipating what that looks like. So please encourage them to apply and use the free resources too. That's the other cool thing about the free resources I mentioned earlier. It gives people a great opportunity to figure out whether or not this is right for them. Right? The intro to coding, going through intro to coding, it offers a free chance at figuring out, is this really what I want to do? Because you start getting into code writing and you go, oh, I can't imagine doing this for a living. Well, then don't, right? Because that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be spending a lot of time doing exactly that. So it's a great way to explore for no cost other than your time. Any other questions? Questions. You mentioned jobs available. What kind of job search help will I get from Code Platoon? We have a career services team that begins working with students upon graduation, and they are extremely motivated, and they work what I call as a top-down and bottom-up effort. Top-down meaning we're spending a lot of time networking with companies to make sure that they are aware of us, to establish relationships with companies so that our graduates will get seen, that their resumes won't just get thrown in the trash or discarded, that they will get a chance to interview and considered, as well as working on things like apprenticeships, paid apprenticeships. A lot of these are in the city of Chicago, but we are working just as hard for everyone outside of Chicago as we do for those in Chicago. But also bottom up in that we have a pretty robust effort to help our graduates, everything from mentorships, resume prep, interview prep, which in the tech world is different than everywhere outside the tech world. We want people to be prepared. And so every bit of the job search effort, we are throwing our full weight into. I can tell you that this last week in Chicago at Celebrate 2024, we saw numerous companies show up who have big companies. We're not talking small companies. When I talk about companies showing up to support Code Platoon, I'm talking about people from JP Morgan Chase, Travelers Insurance just hired. I don't remember how many they hired last year, but it was like This year, I think they've hired 7 or 8 of our graduates, which for a small school is huge. For one company to take on 7 or 8 graduates in a calendar year is tremendous. But we've worked with DRW, we've worked with Motorola Solutions. We have a pretty solid list of companies that have worked with us for this last several years, and we're constantly working on developing those relationships in addition to developing an individual to help them on that path. So career services is something we take not only seriously, but I'd say it's how we measure success. We don't want you to just graduate. We don't want you to walk out of Code Platoon with an expert level of coding knowledge and that's it. We want you to start your career. That's the whole point of Code Platoon. That's what we do. It's integral to everything we do at Code Platoon. Are there any specific partnering companies, organizations with Code Platoon? I think you might have asked that right before. I just said that I didn't even see that question. I think I answered part of that. We do have a corporate partners page on our website, and I can share that here in a minute.
I've got it. Don't worry about it.
You got it. It depends at any given time which company is hiring most. Like I said, Travelers just hired a lot of our graduates. Eighth Light's been a great partner. They were partner of the year before. I think Travelers was this year, right? I was at the event. I should know that.
Yeah, it was Travelers.
I spoke first and then I went to the bar. No, so Travelers, DRW has been a great supporter of us. A lot of our graduates work at DRW. They had a great showing there at the Celebrate event.
Caesars Entertainment has a pretty large alumni network in it, which is awesome.
What's that?
I was just that there's a good amount of alumni there.
Yes, yes. Caesars was a great, and they're a very large company. So yeah, we have a lot of, and then smaller ones as well that may fly under people's radar. Some of these finance companies, I should point this out. I've said this for years. A lot of people go into this industry and into this world thinking that, well, big tech, they think like Microsoft, Google, Meta, things like that. Understand that JP Morgan Chase, okay, one of the biggest financial institutions of the world, puts more money into tech development every year than Microsoft does. Banking, finance, and tech development is massive. So if you're just thinking in terms of the big tech, the traditional tech companies, think bigger. This world is gotten much larger, and there's many more areas you can go into rather than just those obvious ones. So there are a lot of areas that our students have gone into that I would not have known before I worked at Code Platoon. I would have had no idea that the financial industry was such a massive employer of software engineers, but it is. Let's see. What's the earliest start date after submitting the application? Our next available start date, I believe, for full stack is February 7th. Am I right, Kayla?
3rd.
February 3rd. I was off by 4 days. So as stated earlier, the application and acceptance process does take a little bit of time. And you'll want it to, believe me, because there's a lot to learn before you ever start day one to maximize that time. So February 3rd may seem like a ways off. It's not. It's tomorrow. In the world of learning software engineering, learning JavaScript and Python, February 3rd is tomorrow. So if you start now, it's plenty of time. I don't want to scare you and think that it's, you don't have enough time. You absolutely do. But that's coming right up, and it's plenty of time to get ready and get going on all of that. So yeah, February 3rd is the next available full
And that's
stack.
the start date, the application deadline for that cohort. That's Zulu Platoon and the immersive 8 to 5 program. That application deadline is November 24th. So keep that on your radar if you're interested in that platoon.
Thank you for that reminder. But the guided application starts after that, right? So we should probably mention that too. The guided application, if you're going through the guided application, those classes start December, correct?
December 9th, yes.
So
but it's a similar deadline of November 24th to enroll in the guided application classes for that program, if that's a path you're interested in pursuing.
Yes. So enroll now. And and, just start casually studying, building yourself up and get ready. Let's see, for students who don't get picked up for internships, is there career services for them following graduation? Yes. Every one of our graduates gets career services help. Doesn't matter whether you're remote. It doesn't matter whether you're, the apprenticeships is its own thing. Those are varied cohort by cohort because those are dependent on the companies we work with. So one company, or, we might have 3 companies that each have 2 internship or apprenticeship roles during one cohort, and then the next cohort, it might be different companies having a different number. So that's not ever set in stone. But in terms of career services, every one of our graduates gets the full weight of Code Platoon. And that's always as well. So someone like Michael, who graduated back in Bravo, if he comes to our career services today and says, "Hey, I need help," career services is absolutely going to help him. So yes, everyone gets that assistance. And I should add too, it doesn't matter where you are either. You don't have to be in Chicago. And we've proven this for the record because we've had students who were never in the United States the whole time. So we've had students who attended, graduated, and got jobs all from outside the United States. It's not common, but we've had it happen. So I know it can be done. You don't even have to be in the United States to take a bit. And we had specifically, I'm thinking of an Air Force veteran, and then she became a military spouse. She was in Denmark the entire time. And in fact, I think she got a job in the United States from Denmark. I think she's back now. I think they're back in the United States. But yeah, the whole thing was done from Europe. Pretty great. Any other questions? Questions?
Yeah, we'll give just a couple more minutes for any additional questions, and then Greg, you have to leave pretty soon.
I do. I have to leave slightly ahead of the hour this time. Does age problem jobs in this industry? I'm going to be on no. And here, so let me offer you my take. I'm not a software engineer, but I do have a lot of insights into a lot of different areas of the economy. Software engineering is one of the rare areas, I think, in our economy where exactly what Michael just said, it's 100% ability. I mean, it really is dependent on, can you write code? Like, can you read and write code? Can you develop software? Can you build and do the things? That's really what matters most. And it is one of the, in that way, yes, it's very discriminatory in the sense of skill. It is one of the least discriminatory industries I've ever been a part of in terms of any other quality you may have, whether that's age, race, gender. My sister was a software engineer for over 25 years. I mean, she started clear back in the 90s. She was very successful working in, at that time, what was an almost like a 99.8% male dominated industry. She did great. She was fantastic and succeeded very well. There was no discrimination because she was a woman. It's like, can you do the skill? She could, and she did, and she did very well. So I see very little discrimination based on things like age. You at 40 years old, you wouldn't even be close to the oldest student who's come through our cohort. I know we've had students in their 60s, not very common, but it's happened. The only thing I'll offer just for my own self as a 51-year-old person, it does seem it's kind of like languages in general. The older you are, when you start to learn it, it might be harder just because other things are so cemented. But you might also have a skill for this. It might be your thing, and you might start it and go, "Oh, this is great. This is easy." So I don't know. I've seen a lot of older people like myself who start into it and go, "Ooh, this is not for me." That's why I'm in recruiting. I'm not a software engineer. So definitely, in terms of the job market, I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's probably seen as a plus because you have experience. In terms of the skill, that's really individual case by case basis. Do we know how many internships are available before we start the cycle? Doubtful. Very rarely do we know that with any kind of advance. Like, you'll probably be in the cohort itself before you know how many apprenticeships are actually available. I don't know when they actually come up with that. I'm guessing that's through Rod and the career services team. But highly unlikely that you would know prior to. But at the same time, like if you're in Chicago, if you plan on attending in the city of Chicago, there's lots of opportunities and you'll have lots of chances to network with companies that we work with in that time. So by no means should you consider it limiting, even if you don't know or if that's kind of a mystery, because it may very well be that you don't even want an apprenticeship. Like you might have offers that are better than the apprenticeship. It's happened. It's happened several times actually.
Absolutely. Awesome. Any final questions before we call it here for today? And as a reminder, you're always welcome to reach out to Greg with any follow-up questions or to like one-on-one discuss like your situation if you want any advice from him there. His email address is greg@codeplatoon.org. So very easy email address there. He put it in the chat just to me, so I will put it to
I just
everyone
realized
in the
that. I don't know why that switches sometimes, but there we go. Kayla already beat me
There you
to it.
go.
Yes, please email me if anyone has any specific questions and they want to talk one-on-one. That's what I do. This is what I do for Code Platoon is I help people on this path. Once you start the program, there's not a lot I can do, but I am happy to help you on your journey here. So please email me. I'm happy to exchange emails or set up a phone call, whatever works best.